But law doesn't have to be scary. And what I wish, if people take one thing away from this call today, the first thing, oddly, I probably wish they would realize is law contracts done right are a small business owner's best friend.
Yeah.
Hands down, full stop. It will protect your personal assets. It will protect potential clients from stealing your work and not hiring you, which happens far more than you think.
Hey guys, welcome to episode number 237 of the Game On Girlfriend podcast. Do legal issues make you want to vomit just a little bit? Do they make you feel a little queasy? Do you feel like anything having to do with the law, lawyers, or your business means it's kind of scammy, means it's going to be too hard, means it's a little heavy? Or are you one of those lucky people who thinks that anything that has to do with the law and contracts and LLCs and copyright issues is actually gorgeous and wonderful and can protect your business? Yeah? No matter where you fall, you are going to love today's conversation with lawyer Sharon Tasmin. Listen, there is so much that you need to cover as a business owner when it comes to covering your assets. And yes, I meant that the way it came out. You gotta cover your assets. If you've been around me for a while, I'll talk about kicking assets, but today we're talking about covering them. And it isn't just so much, let me have an LLC, let me make sure I'm incorporated. Yes, those things are critical, and we do cover those in today's conversations. But there's so much nuance to law, which is a funny thing to say because it's law. It should be hardcore and fine-lined and like really rigid and clear, and it isn't always, especially when we're dealing with business and what can happen inside a business. So what I really hope you do with today's conversation is think about your own business. Think about things you've created that you would love to protect, things that matter to you and that are important to you. And I want you to pay attention to what you could be doing to honoring your own work even more. Sharon L. Tasman is a seasoned business and technology attorney with over 30 years of legal experience and over 10 years as a business. Having spent 15 years at HoganLovells, one of the world's largest law firms, and serving as in-house counsel at MedImmune, Sharon founded HTBiz Law to offer clients the best of both worlds, a boutique law firm experience with the expertise of a global firm. Sharon's passion lies in empowering women and members of the BIPOC community to start and grow their businesses. With her unique blend of legal expertise, technical knowledge, and firsthand entrepreneurial experience, she understands the challenges faced by solo and small businesses and offers tailored solutions to overcome them. Sharon holds a Juris Doctor degree with honors from the University of Maryland School of Law and is admitted to practice law in multiple states. She completed her undergraduate work in business and computer science at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, a leading global research university, and received a Bachelor of Science degree summa cum laude from the University of Maryland. Sharon is no joke. She knows the law forwards and backwards, as you just heard from her incredible experience inside the world of law. And there's one other thing I hope you listen for in today's conversation. As you listen for your own business, please grab a notebook. Make sure you are taking notes on the different ways that you need to protect yourself. But I also hope you listen for the conversation when it veers towards your experience, how much experience you have, and just how valuable that experience is to the people you serve. And that should be reflected in what you're charging. All right, beautiful people, pop in those earphones and let's get to it. Sharon, welcome to the Game On Girlfriend podcast. Holy cannoli, we are about to dive into all things legal protection and assets.
Of course. And a little bit of mindset along the way.
Always. Is mindset ever not included? I mean, could we just be honest? Like, it's
no, it's not. I mean, you just can't be in business and not have mindset as part of it, because, one of the things I love about what I do, it's as much business and law and mindset. It's not one or the other. It's all three put together, and it's everything that I've ever done over my career, as well as everything I'm passionate about, which is helping women level up, because let's be honest, it's not a level playing field.
No.
So it's not a level playing field, but my personal goal is to help make it one as much as possible, even if it's on a one-to-one basis.
Love it. I love it. Oh my God. Yeah, this is going to be a fiery, fun, I think very supportive conversation. I'm really looking forward to it. And I think, one of the things that I'm excited to dive into is how we, especially as female business owners, right? And this idea that mindset is so important. And I always say, you want massive personal growth. start a business. There's all of this, but also as women, how important it is that we understand what we have, who we are, what our value is as we work with people. So I'm thinking I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
Ask away.
All the things that you could have done on planet Earth with your many talents, all of the different ways you could have taken this, all of your beautiful human experiences. Why is this what you do?
Because I have been on the other side. So I started in engineering as a computer programmer. My mother started programming in the 50s. She taught my brother. They taught me when I was 12. I started in engineering. I was good at it. I did not love it. I did not love being a computer programmer, but I had this law class that totally made sense. Ended up going to law school, ended up being a technology and business lawyer, but in one of the world's biggest law firms. When I left, it was 47 offices and 2,500 attorneys worldwide. When I started, it was much smaller, but I was there 15 years. I went in-house and I saw what it was like to be a woman on the inside.
Yeah.
In big law, big corporate. I watched women choosing to never have children in order to make partner, or the women who did make partner or were high up in companies, typically either, like I said, never had children, had a stay-at-home husband or spouse, or had full-time live-in help. I saw women at the law firm I was at give birth and be back at work 3 days later, take calls from the hospital bed. That's not what I want. And it's not what I wanted for me. It's not what I want for women in general. We should be able to have balance, do the things that we want in a sane way. And unfortunately, for a lot of the time still, it means being your own boss. And I started my practice in 2013. So, wow, we're going on 11 years now. And flexibility mattered. I was dealing with one parent, then another, who had a severe illness and ultimately passed. I was a caretaker for them. I know what it's like to put other people ahead of yourself, even when I know that the number one rule of being a caretaker is the caretaker must take care of themselves first. Doesn't always happen. But I mean, fortunately, I was a lawyer. I had done business law. I've done a lot of deals. I've done big deals. So I understood the business of it. And what I will say is, even as someone who was good in business, good in tech, had another friend who became, started her own law firm before me, who sat me down and said, do this, 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 this. It was still way harder than I expected. And what I'm doing now with my age as an asset part of my law practice is helping women start, building, grow their own businesses, because it doesn't have to be as hard, but I know how hard it can be. So I'm trying to empower women, give them the resources, whether it's straight up business advice. I'm an open book. I will tell you how it really is. Whether it's the mindset piece or whether it's the legal tools, I'm determined to make it affordable, available, whether you want to do it for a little less money and do a little more elbow work, or have me do it for you. Or I just provide a lot of more or less free resources through all my social media channels. I want to make a difference. Really matters, because women, and this is something I deal with a lot when I'm working with clients, whether it's group setting or in more coaching or private clients, is men will apply for the job, start the business, ask for the raise when they're only 50 to 60% qualified. Women wait till they're 80 or 90% qualified. And we don't have to. We should be throwing it against the wall and seeing what sticks sooner. But we have to just a little bit get over that mindset of, I have to be perfect. No, you don't.
No.
There are some things you do need to do, but you don't have to be perfect to be a business owner.
God, boy, ain't that the truth, right? And I think you're speaking to something that's very near and dear to my heart that I do in my work too, and that is really rebuilding our self-trust, right? Because as women, I think one of the things that gets eroded constantly is the idea that we should be able to trust ourselves, right? And it comes in societal messages, like all the ones you're saying, like guys are taught when they're younger, oh, you can barely do it, go try, go, do it anyway. But then there's also these messages like, we couldn't get our own mortgages until 1976. You couldn't get your own credit card as a woman without a man's signature until 1976.
We're expected to play nice.
That's right. That implies you're not really trustable. We can't really trust you with the grown-up things. And that sort of message gets delivered. And so I think when we start to take on and start to jump at 50% instead of waiting to 80 or 90, it's really knowing we'll catch ourselves, that self-trust that needs to be healed, I think, after so many years, so many decades, centuries of being told That's for the grown-ups, kid, not for you. You're a girl. Right.
And
those messages. Yeah.
And we have to balance it. It's having the guts and the self-confidence to go for it when you don't know all the answers.
Yes.
But at the same point, because of the way society expects, we still have to treat ourselves and act like we do know it all, but without being a know-it-all. It's like, it reminds me of that social media post where you have to do this while doing this, but doing this as a woman. We do still sometimes, unfortunately, have to be better, stronger, faster. It's a dichotomy. We shouldn't wait till we're only 90% qualified before we go for it. But when we go for it, let's go for it sooner, but let's make sure we're going for it the right way. And that's really at the crux of what I'm trying to do, is make sure women, either aspiring business owners or new business owners or experienced business owners, have the tools to be their own boss in a way that doesn't jeopardize their personal assets, where they're not getting underpaid and where they're getting the respect and they're not being trapped in bad contracts. In large part, I think it's in a way due to the stereotypical image people have of lawyers, that lawyers are either scary, evil, ambulance chasing,
right,
unaffordable.
Yeah.
Right. Or unaffordable.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some attorneys who fit that bill.
Yeah.
I did go to law school. I knew all the people in my class. There are some people who fit that bill. I will not name names. But it's true. There are just some people who are that. Right. It's the joke, whoever graduates last in their class, what do you call them? If it's in med school, doctor, and it's in law school, lawyer. But law doesn't have to be scary. And what I wish, if people take one thing away from this call today, the first thing, oddly, I probably wish they would realize is law contracts done right are a small business owner's best friend.
Yeah.
Hands down, full stop. It will protect your personal assets. Mm-mm. It will protect potential clients from stealing your work and not hiring you, which happens far more than you think. It will protect you from hiring someone to do work for you, but not realizing that you actually haven't gotten ownership of everything they did. So you've paid them, but they still own it. Happens all the time. Or you're trapped in a bad contract where the language, because it was drafted by the client, not you, looked like a decent contract, but there were some sentences which really can make a difference where the client could just keep going, no, do it again. And I've seen contracts where the value of re-performance of services somebody had to do for free was twice the original contract. So don't be afraid of lawyers. We're not even
that. Yes. No, and I look to but you're saying something really important, which was a small business owner's best friend. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes what happens with law is a lot about, it's kind of like the same energy that happens with money too, is like, I don't want to be scary. I don't want to be too aggressive. I don't want to make people sign a contract. Like it can hold that same energy of like, I don't want to be one of those big scary bro dudes. I want to be the nice business owner who's here to help people. And so I think what you're saying is really important, because while I'll have clients who really they'll get contracts. They're like, okay, I see this. Others are like, but what if they don't pay me because I sent the contract? And it's this most amazing thing to me, this perception of getting paid well, this perception of jumping before you're 90% ready, this perception of charging more. How do you see that as sort of all connected? Because I think it is. I'm kind of having a hard time articulating how exactly, but it seems very connected to me, this idea that we can be fully out there and fully protected and fully ready to go and still be seen as like, okay.
Well, the first thing I have to say, if someone is afraid to send a contract because they won't get paid for the work they did, that means you did the work with no contract at all, which is where the problem begins, which is you should never perform work for a client until you have a contract in writing, which gets to your question. The reality is if you are in business, you deal with banks, they make you sign things. Right. You have business insurance, you sign things. Your clients, your customers sign things all the time. They sign contracts every day. They may just not think of them as contracts. Right. You sign contracts. You buy some software, you signed a contract. You may have been just clicking, I agree. Contracts are out there. We do not think somebody's evil because you bought the software and you have to click the contract. If somebody wants the benefit of your services and what you offer, presenting a reasonable for the type of services or toward the type of products for your business if that scares somebody off. If somebody refuses to do business with you because you want them to sign a contract that protects you and still gives your client or customer what they need, run. Because that's the potential client that will not pay.
Yes.
They will
leave bad reviews.
They will leave bad reviews.
Yeah.
They will have wholly unrealistic expectations because the contract protects both of you.
Right. Especially when it's done well. Yeah.
Absolutely. It protects the service provider or the business owner. It protects the client or customer. Because the single greatest part of a disagreement between clients and customers is, or service providers, consultants, business owners, and their customers is when there wasn't the clear understanding of what you were going to do, for how much money, and in what time, versus what they were going to get, in what time, and pay how much. And the simplest way to solve that problem is put it all in writing.
Yeah.
And when you put it all in writing and both parties sign, that's contract.
Right.
So it really is understanding that if a client won't be your client because you want them to sign the client, they are not a client you want. And the reality is not all money is good money. Not all clients are good clients. And as a new business owner, and I went through this, even though I'd been a lawyer for 20 years before I started my own practice. And I had worked it for MCI and GE as a computer programmer before that.
Wow.
It is very hard to acknowledge in the beginning, and even later on at times, that a client is not the right client for you.
It is.
And the hardest decision a new business owner will make when they are new and desperate for money is I must take every bit of work that comes in the door. And that is 100% the wrong thing. If you are so desperate or foresee that you will be so desperate that you will not be able to say no, you're not ready to start your business as your full-time job yet.
I am so happy you said this. And I love sharing a personal story here that I learned as well, where I took on the wrong client. Like I knew it was wrong. I knew it was wrong. I knew it was wrong. Signed the contract, did all the things. Ended up being such a horrible experience. Oh my gosh, Sharon, I didn't sell anything for 3 months because I was so scarred. Because it was just like, I never want to go through something like that again. And I was legally protected and everything was fine, but it was just awful.
It still can be traumatic. Yes.
Oh, it's awful, right? But I knew. And I think what you're saying is so important when we're talking about protecting ourselves, right? And really making sure we're functioning at the highest levels that we can so we can be our own bosses and not take calls from hospital beds when we've just delivered children, right? We have to be able to be honest enough, and is proud enough maybe the right word? I mean, like dignity proud, not like arrogant proud, but like proud enough to sometimes say, this isn't going to work. This is not going to be a good fit. Yeah, that's a hard lesson for me to learn. I'm grateful I did, but boy, I wish I'd learned it easier.
Yeah, I ultimately ended up firing my first private practice law client. I fired them. I did, because they would take the contracts I did for them, change them, and then complain when they didn't do what the contract was supposed. Yes, but that means they could say I committed malpractice. I'm like, no. So then I started sending them locked contracts that they couldn't change. And then they said, but we want to change the contract. I said, how do you want to change it? And here's why I've locked it. And ultimately, I had to fire the client. Wow. I said, I don't think I am the attorney for you. And I let them go. And it was scary. Now, it was less scary for me because I did what I think small business owners, if you really want to start your business right, if you really want to protect yourself, there are 2 things you need to do. The first thing you need to do is sit down and be honest with yourself from a mindset perspective of, are you ready to make the change from employee to boss? Because as an employee, as a lawyer in a big law, I had an accounting department, a billing department, a legal secretary, a mail room. I had access to a car service, a travel department, health insurance. I had all the things, but it wasn't just the financial things. I had all the support. When you become a business owner, at the beginning, it's all you. So in addition to all the, quote, billable work, the work that's going to pay you, you're doing everything else. So ask yourself, are you ready and capable? Because you may be the world's greatest business consultant, but you may be terrible at filing.
Right.
Or you may hate to send out, prepare, check, and send out bills and then chase clients for money. Because no matter how good your agreement with your clients is, There will always be some you have to chase for money. So do you have that fortitude? Are you ready to make the leap? Are you ready to make the tough calls? The second thing is, are you financially ready? You may be sure you're ready to go. My question for you is, what will happen if no income comes in the door for the first 6 to 12 months?
Yeah. Yep. That's
because just question. Going, I've opened my business, it doesn't work that way. And
you
my turn to share a person.
Where they pose girls and they're cute and then they have a business. It's not like that.
And I will share my personal story about that. My personal belief is everyone should have every day when they're an employee in any part of life, 3 to 6 months of all of your living expenses in the bank, in cash, sitting somewhere, completely accessible every day. If you're opening a business, it should be 12, because you might not work for that first year, or you might work and have no clients. I ended up falling into, you might not work for the first year. And here's what happened. I left my in-house. I'd gone to a tech client, left that just because I was opening my practice. My mother relapsed for the 4th time in 3 years with cancer.
Oh my God. I'm so sorry, Sharon. That's a
and I was the only local child, and my father had already passed. And my mother is a bit of a narcissist. That would be an understatement. So it was a draining emotionally, just as I'm starting my practice, just as I'm starting to email and write to all the clients I had at Big Law, saying, hey, I'm available.
Yeah.
I'm now, solo small. So instead of you paying, back then, 10 years ago, $700 an hour for my time, you now can have me for $250 because I'm not working for an IMPay office building. Now, my rate's obviously a lot higher than that now. But because if I was in Big Law now, it'd be, $1,000 to $1,500. So my first number is still a 4. Because I want to be able to help solo and small businesses.
Right.
And I offer packages that come out to even less per hour for startups and true small businesses, because I really want to make the difference, and I have low overhead. I deliberately have kept my overhead as low as possible. I don't have a fancy office. I don't work in a fancy office building. So I started my practice. I was getting ready to send out I've opened it because as a lawyer, you can't contact people when you still work for somebody else. You have to.
Got it. Okay. So legally that was your open and shut there. So you had to wait.
No, I'm open. Right. I'm available.
Right.
My mom relapsed.
Wow.
So I spent an inordinate amount of time taking her to doctor's appointments, chemotherapy, visiting her in the hospital, taking her to the hospital, emergency calls. And I was so stressed out that I ended up in the hospital twice.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Because when you get exhausted,
it happens.
Your immune system doesn't know what to do when you get a pneumonia vaccine. So I don't know if I'm the only person who got sepsis from a pneumonia vaccine.
Oh my goodness. But you were probably so worn out. You've launched a business that you can't run. You're dealing with your mom, and mom is like already heavy, and then you've got cancer, and then you don't feel good. That's a lot, Sharon. Wow.
So I ended up basically doing almost no work for 12 months.
Got it.
Fortunately, I had 12 months of expenses. So I burned through almost all of them. So when you start a business, you have to look at all the parts of your life.
Right.
Because, the reality is as women, we bear more of the mental load, the emotional load, the household load. It doesn't matter whether you're married, single, have kids or not. Well, especially if you're single, it all falls to you. But if you're married or have family, kids or not, there's always more. And particularly women in their mid to late 30s, 40s, 50s, it's the sandwich generation. We are the sandwich generation. We have kids and parents. And you have to be prepared for the reality of that. It may be that when you get to that, to far enough in the business, the first hire you make isn't your assistant. It's a housekeeper or a chef, or you send out all your laundry. Because it is true, we cannot do it all the time well. Shonda Rhimes, Shondaland, who does Grey's Anatomy and practice.
Huge fan.
I love her. She gave a graduation speech where people, she said, people have asked me, how are you such a great mom, a great wife, and such a great, producer? And she said, I'm not. She said, if I am doing wildly well at home, work slips. If I am wildly focused on work, home slips. She said, it is a fallacy. You cannot do it all the time.
Right.
So you have to make sure that you can in your business do the self-care you need to do, the home care you need to do, and your job.
Yeah.
And make sure.
And I'm hearing too, what support do you need to do that well?
Yes.
Yeah.
But the reality is in the beginning, you're doing it all.
Yeah.
You will be, the first year or two you open a business and start a business, you will be exhausted. So maybe the answer is, are you allowed by your current job to start a side hustle that you know will become your business later, but maybe you're allowed to have a side business? That's between you and your current employer. But that's one way to do it. Start it as a side business, start building the clients, make sure you have the money, then go full time. But regardless of whether it's your side hustle or you go full bore initially, you cannot do it under your own name. You must, if I drill the next thing into anyone's head, you must, if you are listening to me and you are thinking or have started a business, if you are not an LLC or a corp, an Inc. or an S Corp, stop right now. And that is the very next thing you must do. Because if you are operating under your own name, even if it is a trade name, if I wasn't a separate LLC, it means that there is no distinction in the eyes of the law between me as a business and me as a person, which means if I make a mistake in my job and my business gets sued, all of your personal assets are at risk, not just the business assets. Your house, your car, your savings. Because in the eyes of the law, unless you are have set up your business as a legal structure, you personally are the same as your business.
Right.
So the first thing you need to do is file an LLC, and it will be the best $100 to $300 you will ever spend. If you can't afford that, for sure, you should not be starting a business. If you can't, and the next thing I would say is if you can't afford your basic contracts, you shouldn't be starting a business either, because if you don't have $5,000 to $10,000 to sink into the costs of starting your business, you're not ready.
I love it.
But to be an LLC, it's easy.
Yeah.
You go to whatever state you're in online, and I'm working on building a library of all 50 states on my website for people for free. You can fill the form out online. It's 2 screens long. It's purely facts. Your name, the name of the business, where you're operating out of, and what you're going to do with it. That's it. You file. At the end, you pay, it's somewhere, depending on the state, $100 to $300. You become an LLC. Now, the key is you need to now operate like a business. Have a business checking account. Have a business credit card. Do not use the business as your personal piggy bank. So you have to operate as a business. You can't just say you're a business. In order to be protected, like I said, have a checking account, have bank accounts.
Right.
Not treat it as your piggy bank. And ideally, you want what's called an operating agreement for your LLC. It's where you state, do I have one member? Do I have multiple members? How do I pay myself? But there are other really important things that the operating agreement does. It helps show in the minds of a jury, a judge, your bank, if you want to open a bank account sometimes, that you truly are running like a business. You see yourself as a business. It helps establish that there is a line between you as a business and you as a person. It also lets you indemnify yourself, which means to protect yourself. The business can say, as long as you, person and manager of this business, are doing things in accordance with the law, we will cover your damages.
I love it.
If somehow you got sued. And also, it will lay out what you want to happen if something happens to you. Part of being an adult and being in business, and we have to put our big girl pants on, is we have to plan, unfortunately, for when it isn't all wine, roses, and great hot chocolate.
Right.
Because things happen, you might get sick, you might pass on. You want to be able to control what happens to the business. Do you want it to go to a spouse, a child, or just shut down? You want to protect the image after you're gone or after you're done with the business. And you do all of that in the operating.
Brilliant. I hope everybody listening, I almost feel like this is one of those episodes, Sharon, where people need like a notebook. I think they should be like ready to take notes on all the things that businesses need to go through. And it's interesting, even as we're talking, I'm like, I want to double check a couple things on mine. And mine's pretty buttoned up. But I feel like there's always different ways that we can be thinking things through differently, looking at how we're going to expand, where we're going to go next, and what protections we need for that. But I'm so
you own everything you think you own?
Yeah. Oh, I love that too. I saw that. Like we were talking about this before we started to record, but like, what do you actually own? Oh my gosh. When you asked that question, I was like, that is such a powerful question. When you ask people that, Sharon, like if you guys are sitting down and you're like, yo, let's talk. What do you actually own? How much do people actually know? I just love to know. I'm just sort of curious, like how much do people actually know, or do they think they own that they don't, or how does that usually end up going? Where do people usually fall when you ask that question?
When I ask that question in regards to business, I'm trying to get people, and especially women. I mean, I do have male clients, but my passion is women. I'm not like, I don't discriminate against men. Men are wonderful. I'm married and I have the world's greatest husband. But what I'm talking about is, especially women, they don't think about all the things that they use every day in their business that they have created over years of experience that they don't think to charge for because it doesn't occur to them to charge for. I'm talking about, do you have a code bank? Do you have algorithms? If you're in the finance world, have you created a spreadsheet with all these great macros that when you're doing work for your clients, you just take 5 numbers and plug it in and your form does magic and there's the answer? Do you have reports or white papers? I've written a roadmap. I give it away for free. It's, the 6 must-haves to legally protect and grow your business. That's my intellectual property. I give it away for free, but I still own it.
Right.
And I have a copyright notice on everything, every page, every time. But if you don't sit down and think about, do an inventory of all the things that you use, if you haven't done that exercise, I guarantee you don't know everything you own. And I'll also guarantee you're charging less than you should, because it goes a little bit back to the playing nice. We feel like we have to be the nice girl. We don't want to, what if they object to the contract? Oh my gosh, what if I raise my rates? Will they pay me? You have all your years of experience. I guarantee you've got all these tools that you've created. Are you actually taking that into account when you set your rates for clients? If you had to, let's say we'll use that spreadsheet as an example. You've got this great spreadsheet that's all these macros that you use with all of your clients. If you had to create that from scratch for each client project, or if you had to manually do the work without this tool that you built, how much longer would it take? How much more would the client have to pay? The client is getting all of your experience. You should get paid for all of your experience. So the knowing what you own, I think of it as you need to know what you own so you can get paid what you're worth. Do the inventory, think of everything that you've created, and then make sure that you're taking that into account in the rates that you charge.
I love this.
Do you add $25 an hour? Do you just include it in a flat fee? And, I get pushback, especially from women, unfortunately, going, but I can't ask for more money. Or what if the client doesn't think I'm worth it or wants to know why my rates are what they are? One, you should do a little research and see what the going rate is in your field.
Yes.
Then take a look at your experience versus theirs. But the client is getting the benefit. And the thing you explain to the client, and part of this, again, in the mindset, is being prepared to negotiate and be your own advocate. I negotiate for clients for them that want me to. I do that. But you have to have the confidence to say, I am worth it because, know it in your head, because I've been in this industry for 30 years. I have these certifications. You are getting all of my experience. I've done $6 billion in deals. I mean, I've worked on $6 billion worth of deals with the B. So yeah, I know what I'm doing.
Right.
And the client
I'm thinking of, Sharon, too, is like, think about all the pitfalls about. All of the day-to-day things that need to be involved because of all that experience too. I can't even imagine how valuable that is, because it keeps them from having to go through mistakes that you've already seen other people make that you're going to protect them from. I mean, oh my God, that's so.
That's also what business owners should be thinking when they're dealing with their clients, right?
It's 100%.
Right. Yeah. I've got all these things that I know that you don't. This is why I'm worth it. You're getting, someone said, a client, you hear this all the time. The client said, well, somebody else said they do it for less. I said, well, you can go that way.
But maybe they should be charging less because they're not as good as you.
They're not me.
Right.
I bring something unique. I bring my X years of experience, my skills, my tools to you. And remember, not all clients are the right client. Not all money is good money. And this is something everyone has to learn. If you take the project that absorbs 40 hours a week of your time, it isn't just that it may not be the right client and you may be getting paid less for this project. It's you're losing the opportunity cost of something else. That may pay you better.
Yes. That is I think that's one of the biggest missing pieces for so many people, Sharon. I'm really happy you said that, because We realize we talk about opportunity costs when it comes saying yes to like a project internally sometimes in business. Yeah. But we don't always talk about what it is if you take on an external project that's paying you that isn't the right one, what that ends up doing to the bottom line overall. It's really, really critical. Yeah.
And especially if you've signed a contract that the client wrote, I guarantee you that 98% of the time there'll be something along the lines of, if you're a service provider, for example, the consultant will perform the services to the client's reasonable satisfaction. And that phrase sounds so reasonable, except what you have done is legally agreed to a free reperformance of services until the client says, I'm satisfied.
Right.
Because
to actual deliverables, is that like the better way to do it?
Yes, as opposed to, let's use this example. I'll create a website for you, for your business. Okay. To the client's satisfaction. You create a reasonable website. They come back and go, but I wanted e-commerce and why isn't it integrated with Stripe? And you'll go, I said I'd create a website. I thought I was going to get this. As opposed to, I'm going to create a website for your business that will have 5 main pages. Each of those will have 4 subpages. It will be built on this platform, integrated with this payment processor, and I'll provide X amount of hours of reperformance of services for free. The rest will be at my hourly rate of X, whatever.
You know, Sharon, I think that's such a great example because what you just did is actually clarify for both. Like you said from the very beginning, when this is done well, both people are protected because it's the worst. I've paid people to redo my website and then I'm like, but that wasn't included? Like, are you kidding? That's a basic thing. And they're like, well, but we didn't. I'm like, oh my gosh. So that going back and forth that can actually happen when both don't sit down and get clear. This is so helpful. So good. Yeah. Oh my God. Sharon, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I feel like we could probably talk for another 3.5 hours. But
I can come back.
And to have you back on, we can talk about more stuff because it's so important. There's so much that goes into running a business well. And I think having the right legal support is so important, which leads me to my next question. If someone is listening and they're like, oh my God, I love the way Sharon talks. I love the way she's dealing with these legal issues and they want to reach out to you. They want to learn more. They want to stay in your world. How can people find you?
They can go to our website, which is the first option, which is www.HTBiz stands for healthtechbusinesslaw.com.
Okay.
You also can find me on LinkedIn under my name, Sharon Tasman. You can, or the law firm. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Nope, sorry, I'm not on Twitter anymore because
Twitter went weird.
TikTok. You can just look for at HTBizLaw.com. On TikTok, it's basically pure content videos explaining topics one at a time. Copyright, trademark, what's a confidentiality notice, all of that. I've got probably hundreds of videos on TikTok. We've got long form on YouTube. I've got content out on Instagram because I'm really trying to empower women. So just look for HTBizLaw.com. And if you're a woman over the age of 40 and either aspiring or want to join business, we have a new Facebook group just for women over 40 in business, and it's Age is an Asset.
Oh, I love it. I love it. You guys, we are going to link to that underneath this video. If you're watching on YouTube, or it will be in the show notes if you are listening in. Sharon, thank you again so much. I feel like all I've said all day is, oh my God, that's so good. Thank you so much. But that was so good. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
Yeah. Thanks, Sharon.